Hello guys, welcome back. So today we're just going to do a couple thrift flips. Starting off with this wooden rocking horse I picked up at the Goodwill bins. I'm just going to give it a paint job and then just add some IOD molds to it just to give it a little bit more detail. So to start off, I'm going to use this IOD mold. I think it's called Classic Elements. I'm going to go ahead and prep my mold here with some baking powder. And baking powder just allows the clay to release a little bit easier from the mold once we are ready to take it out. So I rolled up the clay for a bit in my hands, and then I'm going to start pushing it into my mold. This clay was a bit dry. It had been a minute since I've used it, so it's a little bit hard to work with, but I kind of wanted to finish it up. So once I filled my mold here and take off all the excess clay, I'm going to go ahead and turn my mold over and start releasing the clay from the mold. I'm going to go ahead and use some Titebond and go ahead and glue the mold over this little pink part of my rocking horse. Normally I would sand down anything that's painted on so it doesn't come through the paint, but since I am going to be covering it with a mold, I think it's going to be okay. Then I decide to add another mold right over the welcome, and I'm using the IOD molds. I think this one is called Olive Crest, and I'm just going to place that right over that welcome. So I go ahead and add some Titebond and glue that on, and then I do let it dry overnight just so I'm not like taking away any of the details from the mold. So I do let it dry overnight and then I come back and paint it. And I'm going to go in with 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. I'm not really going for full coverage. I'm going to end up wet distressing this quite a bit. So I'm not really going for perfection here, just giving it 2 coats. Then going in with a wet rag, I'm going to go ahead and take off some of the paint to give it a more distressed and chippy look. I almost wanted to wait to paint this and maybe get some milk paint. I have never tried that before, but I've seen the chippiness that comes with milk paint and I really do love it. I was just trying to use what I have, so maybe one of these days I will order, but for now we're gonna stick to this. So then to highlight some of the details from the mold, I'm gonna go in with some gilding wax and add it to my mold just to bring out some of the detail. And then I decided to add a little bow right over the back of the horse's tail, just like I did I think it was a couple videos back where I did a bigger horse and I added some lace to the back with a bow and it was so pretty. So I'm going to do the same with this one and just put the bow right on top of the horse's tail. So to create my little bow here, I just gathered up some lace, and instead of tying it in a shoelace type bow, I just kind of crisscross the laces and then just pinch them in the middle. And here I'm just using another piece of lace and I'm going to go ahead and tie it off right in the center. And that is it for this one, and just stay tuned for the end results. Next up is this ornate frame that I picked up at the Goodwill bins. I want to add some gold leaf to it, so I'm going to go ahead and spray it with this Elmer's glue, and then I'm going to put the sheets right over that. And this gold leaf paper, I also picked it up at the thrift store. It was like on the bag wall, and there was like several in the pack, so I did pick them up. It was a bit difficult though to do this outside because this paper is very, very thin. So, and it was a bit windy, so they were just flying all over the place, so I eventually just take it inside. Also, this glue dries very quick, so I wasn't working fast enough. By the time I reached the other side, the glue was already dry. So if you do try this, just work in small sections and work quick. So this is once I brought it inside. I basically laid the gold leaf right over the glue, and then I used this brush just to brush off all the extra gold leaf, and this is what I end up with, and I actually really like it. It has a really chippy look still, because in some of the places I guess the glue had already dried and it wasn't holding on to the gold leaf, but I don't know, I kind of like it the way it is, so I kind of just went with the flow here. Although I love this gold exactly how it is, I'm just going to tone it down just a little bit with some antique wax. Here I'm just showing you the package that I bought. I'm not even sure if this is still available, but it worked out well. So I'm just going to add some antique wax just to tone down the gold a little bit and give it a little bit of an aged look. And I will wipe it immediately. I work in small sections just so it doesn't get too muddy. And this is it after I've covered the full frame. As you can tell, it's not really big of a difference, but you can see where the antique wax did sit in some of those ornate places. So this is the cardboard that came with the frame when I purchased it. I'm going to give it a coat of plaster from Waverly chalk paint. I am going to put a print right over this, and the paper that I printed on is a very thin paper, so I did want to make sure that I start with a white base. So once I get my cardboard fully covered, I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of the spray adhesive that I used with the frame. Then I'm just going to go ahead and place this beautiful print right over that. This beautiful print I actually purchased from Angel Nicole's Etsy shop. She has a YouTube channel here, and I heard her mention her prints on Etsy, and I wanted to check them out, and I fell in love with this one. I will be ordering more possibly for Halloween. She has some really good ones, so I will link it below in case you all would like to create something similar. I'm so in love with swans, so this print was just perfect. And that is basically it for this one. Stay tuned for the end. I will be showing a clip of where I placed it in my home. Next up is going to be this wooden box also picked up from the Goodwill bins. I'm going to do some decoupaging out of some prints that I printed also from an Etsy shop. I'm going to start out by giving it a coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White. And I'm basically going to focus on the top of the box with the color white, because that is where I'm going to be doing the decoupage. So I'm going to go ahead and decoupage this beautiful print that I printed also from an Etsy shop. Look at how pretty this paper is. It's just giving me Bridgerton vibes, the pink flowers, the ornate frame. This paper that I printed on, I'm not really sure what kind of paper it is. It feels like rice paper, but I'm not sure. We picked it up from one of the days that we went to a bulk pickup here in our city, and there was just a huge stack of this paper. I just don't know what kind of paper it is, but it feels like rice paper. So here I'm just coating the top of my box with some Mod Podge so I can go ahead and decoupage that print right over. So I am going to go ahead and lay my paper down and try and take out as much bubbles and wrinkles as I can. I will say that this paper bubbled up almost immediately, but I am going to go in and do a technique that someone mentioned, I think it was in my previous video, to go over it with an iron, putting some parchment paper down first. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this did take care of the bubbles and wrinkles. It actually smoothed out the paper very nicely. Only issue was, I think in one little section I didn't put enough Mod Podge, and so I have a little bubble that just didn't go down, but that's okay. I love how it came out. I was watching somebody's video, a YouTuber that someone else mentioned, and she made a whole video on decoupaging and she did mention to put enough Mod Podge, and I'm one to go very easy on the Mod Podge, thinking that that's what causes the bubbles, but apparently I have to put more. So now I know for next time. So I'm doing the same process to the side of my book, adding some Mod Podge, and I'm going to decoupage the paper down. And then I will take off any excess with a blade once it is dry. I usually prefer to stick to flat surfaces to decoupage. I feel like it's a little bit more challenging to decoupage a curved surface. But I really wanted this paper to go to the side of my book. So I went ahead and did that, and I'm also doing the parchment paper and iron to the side of my book here just so it can flow with what's happening on top. So for the rest of the book here, I'm going to go ahead and use this paint Eucalyptus from Fusion, and I'm just going to give the rest of the book a paint job in this color. And as always, I'm going to go ahead and use some Distress Oxide, which I pick up from Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to go ahead and age the edges of my book. Then I decided to use this mold from IOD, the Lock and Key mold. I did it out of resin. And I'm just going to go ahead and glue it to the side of my book here, which I don't know if I ended up liking this that much. But it was already glued on, and I just went ahead and left it. I'm keeping this box for my craft room. So if I decide to later on take it off, I will do so. And to adhere that onto my book here, I'm just using some Tide Bond and a little bit of hot glue. And I'm just going to go in with some gilding wax from Dixie Belle and just add it to the details of my mold here. And that is it for this one, guys. Let me know what you think. Stay tuned for the end results. Next up, I'm going to create some little bow tassels. I don't know what to call them, but I think they're super cute to hang off of furniture knobs or off of baskets. And I'm just using some random scraps of lace and some fabric. I'm just tearing this fabric very freely. I do like the distressed look of this, so I prefer to do it this way. So I'm basically gonna take my pieces of fabric and lace, and I'm gonna cross them over and pinch it in the center to create a bow. I do this quite often here. I really love to do it. I just decided that I wanted to take a couple to the booth to add to some of my furniture pieces. And I think they're super cute and super inexpensive. If you have a lot of scraps of lace and fabric, I think this is just a perfect way to use up all those little scraps. And not to mention, this gives me very shabby chic vibes, which I really do love. And just using that same little piece of lace that I used to tie my bow, I'm going to go ahead and glue it in the center to create a little loop for my tassel to hang. And I had a couple of these cameos made from my IOD molds. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a coat of eucalyptus from Fusion. And I do paint front and back. I do plan on gluing these to the center of my tassels, so I don't want it to turn over and just have an ugly back. So I do end up painting both sides. And just to bring out some of the details, I'm going in again with some gilding wax from Dixie Belle. And I'm just going to add some hot glue to the back of my mold here, and I'm going to glue it to the center of my little bow. Then I had this little, I think it's like a curtain tie back that I picked up at the bins. I really like the little beaded work on the end. I do end up cutting it off from the tie back, and I want to glue it to the back of my little cameo. I should have done this first, but I came up with the idea once it was already glued on, so I'm just going to work with it. I do add a little bit of hot glue to the end just so it doesn't unravel anymore. And just to make sure that I get it in there and it's going to be secure, I do kind of lift it up a little bit where it was glued previously, and I'm going to go ahead and add some more glue and then just stick it right in there. And that is basically it for this, guys. Let me know what you think. Next up, I'm going to take this little silver plated pot and I'm going to create a little pin cushion holder. Now, I bought several of these that didn't have a lid. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. But with this one, I did see an idea of this and I just wanted to recreate my own. So I didn't really have the cotton or the foam that they used in the video I saw. So I decided to just use this piece of pool noodle from Dollar Tree. At this point here, I still wasn't sure if it was going to work out or not. So I had this piece of fabric that I picked up at the thrift store. I'm going to cut a piece off and then just cover the piece of foam and then just tie it right underneath with a rubber band. And I just cut any excess fabric off just so it's not so bulky at the bottom. And I do add some glue in between the fabric where the pool noodle meets, just to make sure that it doesn't come apart. And then I'm going to go in and stick it into my little cup here, and it was already tight as it is, but I do go in on the edges and add some hot glue to make sure it is secure. And I do that all the way around, just being super careful that the glue doesn't seep out. So when I cleaned my little cup, it had a stain that didn't come off. So I'm going to go ahead and add a transfer on it just to cover up that little stain. These little transfers here I picked up sometime last year from Dollar Tree. And being that these are from Dollar Tree, they do come off fairly easy. I'm just using my little crease cut tool to release it from the transfer sheet onto my cup. And just like with any other transfer, I do burnish it using the same transfer sheet just to make sure that it is all adhered to my cup. And just to trim out the edges of my little cushion here, I'm just going to use this chain that I picked up at Hobby Lobby from the jewelry section. And I am using the E6000 jewelry glue. I feel that that adheres a lot quicker. And it comes with these little tips that make it a lot easier to get a fine line of glue without having too much glue seep from underneath. And that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed these simple thrift lips. Stay tuned for the end to see the end results and how I styled them. And if you like what you see, please subscribe and follow for more, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.